I used to think love would always feel like it did in the beginning. That little high in your chest when he smiled at you, the flutters when his name popped up on your screen. But after 10 years of marriage, the flutters became routines. Daniel and I had what looked like a perfect life from the outside. A decent house, 2 kids, dinner at 7, shared calendars. But somewhere along the way, the words between us became transactional. Did you pick up the dry cleaning? The kids have dentist appointments next week. Even our I love yous felt rehearsed. I told myself this was normal. People grew up, butterflies died. He was never a bad man. He provided, he helped, he didn't cheat or shout. But that's the thing about loneliness. It doesn't need violence to grow. Sometimes it just creeps in through the silence between two people lying back to back in bed. I started living like a shadow of myself. I worked, I smiled, I packed school lunches. I was everything I was supposed to be, except happy. One Tuesday, in the middle of folding laundry, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. "Hey, it's Liam." I froze. Liam. A name I hadn't said out loud in almost a decade. My ex from before Daniel, the one who broke my heart, but also made it beat the hardest. The last man who made me feel like I mattered beyond my title. Wife, mum, manager. I didn't know what to say. He chuckled, said he found an old photo of us and couldn't stop thinking about me. Just wanted to say hi, that was it. But something cracked open. That night I stared at the ceiling long after Daniel turned off the light. I thought about the summer Liam and I drove to the coast, blasting music and making stupid promises. About how he used to write notes on napkins and leave them in my bag. How he saw me. I told myself it was nothing, just a call, a reminder of another life. But then he texted the next day, and the next, I replied. Just casual stuff, old memories, jokes, small things. But each message was a spark, and I realized I hadn't felt warm in a very long time. I started looking forward to his name lighting up my phone. I read his texts in the bathroom with the door locked. When Daniel walked past, I'd quickly flip my screen. Nothing happened, not really, but something was happening inside me. One evening, Liam wrote, "I miss the way you used to look at me." I stared at those words for 10 minutes. Then I typed, "You have no idea how much I miss being looked at like that." And that was the beginning of the end, or maybe the start of something I didn't even know I wanted. I told myself we were just catching up, two people with history sharing harmless words. But harmless started to feel like a lie. Every message from Liam came with a thrill I couldn't admit out loud. He remembered things Daniel never did. How I used to talk about opening a bakery, how I loved thunderstorms, how I always cried during sad movies, but laughed at the wrong moments. He made me feel remembered, like I hadn't disappeared inside the roles I was carrying every day. I didn't plan to lie to Daniel, but I started hiding things. I cleared notifications. I deleted messages. I waited until everyone was asleep before opening our chats. Liam never pushed. He didn't even mention meeting. But the way he spoke to me, like I was still that girl with fire in her voice and dreams too big for her tiny apartment, it hooked me. He asked, "Are you happy?" I told him I was fine. He replied, "That's not what I asked." That question lingered long after our conversations ended. We started talking late at night, sometimes with headphones in so no one could hear. I told him things I hadn't said aloud in years, like how often I felt invisible at home, how I missed being touched without it feeling like a duty. He listened, no judgment, no interruptions, just silence when I needed it, and softness when I broke a little. And it wasn't just emotional, it was the way he said my name, like it still meant something. Daniel didn't notice anything, or maybe he did and chose not to ask. He was busy, distracted, always somewhere else in his mind. I could have told him I was falling apart, and he might have just asked if we were out of milk. I don't blame him entirely. We both stopped trying somewhere along the way, but Liam made me realize how far I'd drifted from who I was. Not because he said the right things, but because I wanted so badly to hear them. One night, Liam sent me a photo of the beach we once went to. No caption, just the image. I stared at it for a long time, feeling everything and nothing. He finally wrote, "I think about that night a lot." I replied, "Me too." He asked if I ever thought about seeing him again. I didn't respond. The next morning I typed, "I can't," then deleted it before sending. The idea wasn't crazy anymore. It was tempting, real. I knew what was happening. I was cheating, even if there was no touch yet. The guilt was already thick, but so was the craving to feel again. I wasn't just escaping the routine. I was chasing a version of myself I thought I'd lost forever. And when Liam said, "Just coffee, 1 hour," I didn't say no. I said, "Let me think about it." And that, I think, was the real yes. I told myself I was just going to talk to him, settle the feelings, get closure. But the moment I saw him, all that logic dissolved. Liam looked older, but familiar in a way that hit me like a wave. We talked, laughed, filled in the blank years. I kept searching for something that would make it feel wrong enough to stop, but nothing did. He made me feel known, and it was terrifying how natural it felt to fall into that rhythm again. I should have walked away when I still could. I didn't. When he brushed his fingers against mine, I didn't pull away. When he looked at me like he had 10 years ago, I didn't look down. When he leaned in, I let it happen. The kiss wasn't dramatic, it was soft, quiet, inevitable. And I kissed him back like I was gasping for air after being underwater too long. We didn't speak after that, just moved. Everything felt slow and fast at the same time. I remember how his hands shook. I remember mine did too. I remember guilt burning through every second, but not enough to stop. I'd missed being wanted so much it felt like a need. When it was over, we didn't speak for a while. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding, my thoughts a blur of shame and longing. Liam looked at me like he didn't want to let go, but I was already slipping back into who I had to be. When I got home, I didn't even need to say anything. I knew I'd changed something that couldn't be undone. The lights were off, the house was quiet. Daniel was asleep. I stared at him for a long time, wondering what he'd say if he knew. If he could ever forgive me, if I could forgive myself. The next few days were hollow. I didn't reply to Liam's messages right away. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to run back to him, pretend the world outside didn't exist. Another part wanted to erase everything, rewind to that moment before the first text. But it was too late. I'd crossed the line. I kept playing scenes in my head, how it felt to be touched without duty, how someone had looked at me with hunger again. And then I'd see my kids and feel my stomach twist. Daniel noticed I was distant, but he didn't ask. Maybe he didn't want to know, or maybe he already knew, in that quiet way people sense the truth before it's spoken. I caught myself staring at him sometimes, trying to see if I still loved him or if I'd just become used to him. I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that something in me had shifted. The damage wasn't loud. It was silent and irreversible, like a crack spreading across glass.